Here's something I've been thinking about. Can government do the right thing, for the right reasons, and still get the result wrong? I think it can. And a recent wildfire warning is a good example. Not because the warning was necessarily wrong, but because of what happened after people received it. The wildfire danger was real, so sending an emergency alert sounds perfectly sensible. You've identified a risk, you warn people about it, job done. Except, that's not where communication ends, because once you send a message to millions of people have to decide what that message actually means. And that's where things get interesting. After the alert, fire services had to remind people not to call 999 simply because they'd seen someone having a barbecue or lighting a bonfire. Now, think about that from the public's point of view. Your phone has just made that unmistakable emergency alert noise. You've been warned about wildfires. Then you see smoke. What do? Some people are obviously going to think, I'd better report that. And suddenly, a perfectly sensible warning has created another problem. And I want to be clear about something. I'm not criticizing the public for taking an emergency warning seriously. And I'm not criticizing the authorities for warning people about a genuine danger. I'm interested in the bit in between, the part we sometimes seem to forget. Human behavior. Because people don't necessarily react to information in the way the person writing the message expects them to. Think about how many notifications you receive every day. News alerts, emails, messages, bank notifications, apps desperately trying to get your attention, ping, buzz, another notification. And what do most of us eventually do? Swipe, dismiss, carry on. We've trained ourselves to filter an enormous amount of information, which creates an interesting problem when something genuinely important arrives. There's research around what's sometimes called warning or alert fatigue. The basic idea isn't difficult to understand. If we're warned too frequently or warnings don't feel sufficiently relevant to us, there's a danger that we start paying less attention. And that's why I think emergency alerts need protecting. When my phone makes that emergency sound, I don't want to think, oh, another one. I want to stop, look at the screen, and think, this matters. And this takes me to the bigger issue. Something can make complete sense sitting around a meeting table. The evidence can support it. The experts can support it. Everyone can agree it's the sensible thing to do. Then it meets the real world, and people don't behave like entries on a spreadsheet. We misunderstand things. We worry. We overreact. We underreact. Sometimes we do something nobody anticipated. That's not stupidity. That's human behavior. So perhaps, before sending a message to millions of people, we need another question. Not just, is this information correct? Not just, should we warn people? But, what are people actually going to do when they receive this? That's a very different question, because now you're thinking about consequences rather than simply communication. And this is where frontline experience becomes incredibly valuable. Before pressing send, ask the people who are going to deal with the reaction. Ask the firefighters. Ask the emergency call handlers. Ask the police. Ask NHS staff. Ask council workers. What do you think people will do when they hear this? Because somebody dealing with the public every day might spot a problem that isn't obvious around the meeting table. Now, I don't want this argument misunderstood. I'm not suggesting government should stop warning us. Quite the opposite. If there's a serious danger, I want to know. But precisely because emergency warnings matter, I think we should be careful about how we use them. The message shouldn't simply tell us what's happening. It should tell us what we need to do, and sometimes, just as importantly, what we don't need to do. And maybe there's a wider lesson here. Government communication shouldn't end when somebody presses send. That's actually when the public part begins. What will people think? What will they misunderstand? What will they worry about? What will they do next? And what pressure might that put somewhere else? Those questions should be part of the decision, not an afterthought. So I'm left with this question. Should government sometimes say less? Perhaps say it a little later, but say it properly. I don't think there's a simple answer. And I certainly don't think the answer is to stop warning people about genuine danger. But I do think we need to think beyond the message and consider what happens next. So what do you think? Would you have sent the wildfire alert? And if you would, what would you have told people to do? That's the conversation I'm interested in. This is Beyond the Headlines.